Hello and welcome to our fourth episode of League of Bets, the podcast where we give you all of the latest news and insights on League of Legends betting. On today's episode, we're going to be chatting about the rise and fall of G2 and where they're currently sort of sitting and going into next year. But first, how you going, Ryan? What have you been up to this week?
Yeah, been pretty well. I got my second dose of the vaccine, so I'm fully vaccinated.
Oh, dude, I'm getting
yeah.
mine tomorrow. Not tomorrow, the day after.
Yeah, so
Oh, me too. It's
I'll
crazy.
see you there.
We might see each other there.
yeah, so that means I can finally go to the cinema. Woot woot.
Woo-hoo.
But
Nice.
haven't been yet. I'll see what's on soon. But maybe next week we can see what movie I've seen. But yeah, what about you, Henry? What have you been up to?
Oh, it's Father's Day. My second ever Father's Day just recently. So that
Oh,
was good.
congrats,
Had
mate.
a picnic with the family, and my wife got the girls all this like basketball merch. So they've got like a mini basketball ring that they play with now, which is cool.
Did they get a team
Raising
yet? Have they got a team?
They could probably play for my team. We're not that good, so yeah, if we ever need to fill in. And then league-related news. Well, this was not the last week, but since the last podcast, I hit Masters in TFT, which
yes, let's go.
hell stoked with. So now I've got the stress of like having to play decay games every 10 days. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. What about you, Sick Dog? Welcome to the podcast on the front end, by the way.
Hi.
How you doing,
I'm
Sick
pretty
Dog?
excited to be here. I'm doing really well. I also had my vaccine this week, so I'm halfway to my hot vax summer, which I'm really excited about.
What is hot vax?
As in, like, hot girl summer, but hot vax summer.
It's probably some
I'll be
trendy
fully
hashtag we're
vaccinated
not
through
across.
summer.
Yeah, I think I should move into that.
We'll see if
Gotta
that
catch
one
up on
gets
my
trending
TikTok.
on Twitter or not.
Yeah.
What about you,
What
Jared?
about you, J-Rod? How was your week?
My week's been okay, but it's about to get better. It's actually my birthday tomorrow, so
Oh,
Yeah,
we're getting into boomer territory now. But no, we'll
can have a quiet one in
40 already. Jeez.
not quite 40, but now we're gonna get some Korean fried chicken on Friday night, and it should be fun.
Sounds like
But
it's
anyway.
going to be a big one. Big,
Yeah,
fried chicken night.
it's always a big fried chicken night when we go for Korean fried chicken. Anyway, enough about food. Should we get into our first segment?
Let's do it.
Sure.
This week in review.
So, our summary of wins and losses for the year, we're going to do a full yearly summary, seeing as we've just finished our split 2 and we've got a month break until the World Championships. We pumped out a massive 524 bets this year on League of Legends, and we came up pretty well. We hit $5,757 at the end of the LPL Grand Finals. So,
Jeez.
yeah,
And
pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
look, I could convert that to our usual metric, Jared, and seeing as Maxi Bonds are on special this week for $6 a box at Coles, that's, you're
Now's the
nearly
time to
pushing
buy.
1,000 boxes. But, with that amount like that, I've actually found a much more realistic purchase. So you can get a beautiful Suzuki Auto 2004 model.
Hey!
So a very economical car, 5-speed manual, 100,000 kilometers, full service history. For sale in South Australia. So look, if you subscribe
South
to
Australian prices as well. It's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
Normally
so
a
pretty
bit
good.
expensive over here.
I mean, it's a pretty small car, but like, purely off esports betting money, that's not bad.
Making
Yeah,
bank.
exactly.
Mm.
And we're also pretty stoked because we made almost $3,000 on our free picks. We hit 2,732. So anyone that was following along just for free would have had an awesome year as well. And then finally, we started a bit of a VIP tier in the last month of business in sort of end of July and August. And that hit over $1,000 with an extra $362 than what you would have got on your normal Patreon. So the reason that is because we gave out our tips earlier on in the week, trying to beat the closing line. And for those who don't know what the closing line is, that's the last odds that you'll see before the match starts. So essentially we're thinking we understand the market better than the average person, and yeah, we proved it in the VIP tier that we were doing pretty well at that.
Before the bookies catch up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or when we think that a big name team is going to be bet down by the public, we get on them before they do that, etc. So, yeah, we understand League of Legends better than any other market in the world. So hopefully we can continue to make some money on it for Worlds and next year.
And if anyone wants to learn any more about our bets or in-depth information about betting in general, we're looking at talking about this on an educational podcast coming out after Worlds, and we're really excited about this. But now, onto the news.
Beto Faker maybe in trouble here. Deathmark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the
News?
Yeah, so on the news this week, some pretty huge news. Turns out China is not hosting the World Championships as initially thought, and is now moving to Europe.
Jeez, that
there has
dog
been
sounds furious about it, right? Must be a Chinese league fan.
Yeah.
I'm pretty furious about it because the date's been set back till 5th of October, so we're missing out on almost like 10 days worth of an extra break, which sucks a bit. But
yeah, hopefully that means that more teams can show up to the hotel and get ready and actually participate. But yeah, it seems the local rumors seem that it's going to be in Iceland. I guess they're kind of already set up from MSI. So.
I think they actually confirmed that this afternoon, a few hours ago, that it would be held in Iceland at the same venue that they did MSI.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm not sure about the Icelandic viewer base and fans. I don't know if we're going to be getting huge crowds, but yeah, probably just.
I mean, I think Iceland was chosen for like the most relaxed sort of COVID laws based on their low population and isolation geographically. Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably like if they had it somewhere crowded, they'd only be allowed X amount of people in the venue anyway. So it's going to be mainly online viewing, you'd imagine.
Yeah. Which, not amazing for the atmosphere, I guess, but it's better than not being able to have it at all. Jared, are there any teams that can't make it? I know in MSI, I think the Vietnamese league couldn't make it.
Yeah, so for I think it's the third or maybe even the fourth international tournament in a row, our Vietnamese representatives aren't going to be able to make it there, which sucks big time for Vietnam. Not more to say about that other than feels bad, man.
Well, in the MSI, they just cut out, because I know the OS team was in that group, they just cut out that line and that group just played an extra game each. Are they going to try and find someone to go in to fill that spot, or they're just going to do the same thing?
Well, they haven't officially said anything about it, but I would be thinking for Worlds that they would probably pretty easily be able to get a European team in. They've only got 3 spots at Worlds currently, and they're definitely the third best performing region. So there'd be an argument for them to maybe get a 4th spot. Or if it doesn't go to an LEC team, I know there's been a lot of talk about whoever wins maybe the European Masters could arguably try and secure a spot to Worlds, which would be really bloody cool if we had some more regional, some wildcard regions coming from sort of France and the UK. And I don't follow the European Masters League that much, but I know that there's a lot of minor regions that would be really stoked to be represented, I'm sure.
I mean, if they ask me, and no one ever has, but I would just send Pentanet straight to groups, really, to give OS the fighting chance we deserve. Made it out of groups at MSI. Why don't we do it again?
Yep. For the lols, for the bants. That'd be dope. Raise your koalas.
Yeah. It'll up the Shui numbers globally, surely.
Exactly. Well, speaking of Pentanet and everyone else, I guess we've got all of our teams that we know who are going to Worlds now. So we could even quickly run through it. So I guess from the major regions, the LPL, we've got Edward Gaming has taken the 1st seed, with FPX taking 2nd, RNG jumping in there for the 3rd seed spot, and LNG, which I'm stoked about because Tarzan's one of my favourite junglers of all time. and it'll be really cool seeing him back at Worlds. After that, we've got Korea. So, Korea, not Korea. And we've got Damwon Gaming took their first seed, Gen G number 2, and T1 number 3. And then I believe, was it Hanwha Life Esports took the fourth spot for them?
Yeah.
And then you could probably tell us more about Europe and NA, right?
Yeah,
You've been following them a lot more.
In the LEC, Mad Lions, with 2 splits in a row, have got the first seed, and then Fnatic somehow squeezed in that second seed. With
Straight to groups.
Yeah.
The wife buff. Yeah.
Wife buff's doing them well there, and they actually played pretty well, so I think they deserve to be there, even after a bit of a shaky regular season. And then Rogue, who have gotten there purely based on their good regular season split, have secured their Worlds entry, but I think they have to play in the groups, the group stage, which it's going to be pretty tough for anyone that has to go up against them. And then, you've got 100 Thieves who won the NA. LCS
that was a surprise package.
title.
Them sneaking through in front of TL, C9, TSM.
Yeah, and they did it in convincing fashion. So they definitely earned that spot, that number 1 spot. And TL with runners up go straight into the competition there with, I believe it's C9 snagged that last spot. So
our boy Fudge.
Some big names in those play-ins. So,
I feel like C9 are always in the play-in stage, right? Like I remember, Australia was just getting stomped by them in previous Worlds. Yeah,
we bit of a plug, but we had a session with Coach Curtis the other day, and he was talking about his run-ins with C9 and playing lots of scrims with them, and had some cool war stories. We'll have to ask him very politely if he would like to come onto the podcast maybe one day. That'd be cool.
Yeah, what about the minor regions? Seagull, do you have any information? I think they're all qualified. I've been watching a few of the Latin American leagues and Brazilian leagues.
So the minor regions, they get straight into the group stage are normally PCS and VCS. But I think Vietnam, are we waiting for a confirmation, or they have officially withdrawn their team at this point?
I'm pretty sure they've withdrawn their team, so it's...
so sort of a bit of an asterisk. We don't know what's going to be happening there definitively, but we've got PSG Talon coming in from the PCS straight into group stage. And then the rest of the minor regions are in the play-in stage, so up against the likes of, LNG and C9 and then Rogue. So we've got Beyond Gaming from PCS. We've got Unicorns of Love from LCL, Infinity Esports from LLA. Anyone want to pronounce the Turkish team? Galatasaray, sorry, I was about to butcher that one.
They're a football team as well. And the reason I know their name is because our beloved Harry Kuehl used to play for them at the twilight of his career.
Ooh.
Yeah, right. Okay, in Turkey or...
Yep.
Yeah, nice. The more you know. From CB LOL, the Split 2 champions were Red Canadis. Sorry, I'm butchering these names here. They're not quite your household league teams.
No, I haven't seen them actually turn up at the world stage, so excited to see a new name on the scene.
It's always nice to see a new Brazilian team come out firing. Often they've got the spiciest strats as well, and
the Brazilians killer. I love watching their esports. Yeah.
Of course, we've got the crowd favorite Detonation Focus Me from Japan coming back for the play-in stage, and then we've got a relatively unknown LCO team from Oceania, Peace. And that's it really. So we'll see how they go against each other and against those other giants we mentioned in the play-in stage.
Dude, can you imagine LCO teams, so Oceanic teams? They're probably getting paid $500 a week. I'm guessing. And then all of a sudden you're paired up in the mid lane up against either Perks or Chovy, or you've got Tarzan ganking your lane. You've got no chance.
It's always a chance. You never know what
Yeah,
happens on the world stage, right?
As
True,
we
true,
discussed
true.
in our last podcast, like the amount that you're paying for someone doesn't necessarily correlate to how well they're doing. Like, where's Sword Art? He's on his $6 million contract, right?
He's sitting at Miami Beach right now, probably.
True. He's probably like so happy.
And
I don't have to go to Worlds this year.
if we use some deduction, Pentanet beat C9. C9 arguably have gotten worse. Peace beat Pentanet. So, realistically, Peace should be much better than C9. So, if you're thinking
Look,
about
I probably shouldn't have put Perks in there with the legends of the game anymore, but we'll be talking about that one shortly in the
exactly.
the downfall of G2.
Well, just quickly, another deduction that I saw trending on Reddit. The team that has won Worlds pretty much every single year is the team that knocked out G2. Now, coupled with the wife buff, Fnatic have basically won already, in my opinion.
Some spicy predictions over
These
here.
are like we're not even on to the future bet segment yet, but I reckon that's a futures prediction right there from the Seagull Lord.
At least a couple of bucks on Fnatic to win Worlds at whatever odds they're throwing our way, I reckon.
Sounds
they
good.
do have a chance. It's a very low chance, but they could realistically make it.
It's the exact same thing, and again, we're plugging our future segment for the next 5 minutes, but it's the exact same thing as we saw G2 back in 2019 get to the final. Like, everyone knew they were a good side, but no one expected that.
Exactly.
So,
speaking of fun times, I reckon it's time for Seagull's fun time.
Fun time.
All right. So, this week, guys, got a bit of a treat for you. Now, I know you've got your sort of own specialist regions, and I know for a fact nobody pays too close attention to the LCL. So today, we're going to be playing, is this an LCL player or an item from IKEA? All right.
So good.
Okay, so the first one I've got is Laynel.
So, shall we just jump in? Is this free for all?
Or do we have to like put up a hand and say one left or right?
Can I have it spelled out first?
Yeah, I reckon we all just put our votes in. It's Laynel. What do you reckon? Anybody?
I reckon it's furniture.
I'm gonna go IKEA.
That is the mid laner for Dragon Army.
Easy.
All right.
Yikes.
I knew that one.
The next
100%.
The next one. Yeah. You should have said the role, man. The next one we've got Creox. Kreox.
See, I'm just thinking, would Henry do like back and forward?
I reckon that's a player.
And I think that he would double Duke-us.
I think don't try to guess my psych. Just try to like guess if it's a player or furniture.
Yeah, but I have no idea if it's a player or furniture. But maybe I can figure out your.
You're going player by that logic.
Yeah.
I think we're all going player.
All player.
One player. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is a player. It is the jungler.
Yes.
The jungler for One Breath Gaming. All right, number 3. Kenal.
Oh, definitely IKEA.
Kenal. Jared?
Yeah, IKEA.
I'm going to go another player.
You're right, Jared. It's the AD carry for Black Star Gaming.
So convinced.
Stella's
let's
falling
go.
behind. 1 point.
Dagotto. Dagotto.
I'm just leaning into the IKEA furniture.
IKEA.
It is a desk footrest. Very economical.
I need one of them.
You already have one.
It doesn't work very well.
All right, next one. Nyboda. Nyboda. Nyboda.
Player.
Nah, IKEA for me.
Yeah, I'll go IKEA as well.
It is a bedside table from IKEA.
Nice.
All right, I've got
Stella,
3 more
man.
left here.
I've only got one wrong the first time.
Yeah.
Ah,
I
nice.
think Ryan and I have just gone the opposite every time.
So,
and that's why
Jared, do you know
losing.
your LCL, or do you just really know?
No,
IKEA?
no. Like, I reckon I knew one of these players so far. So,
all right. So, Trysil, Trysil.
Player. I can hear some
Stick with the
typing.
Formula
Is
Stella
Jared
and go.
typing it?
He's got the
I'm gonna
IKEA
say
catalog
player.
up. So, you all gone player?
Yeah.
It is a wardrobe.
oh,
But, you know, that just means that these cool aliases are up for anyone to grab, really. It's like...
Yeah, imagine if you make it big.
Like before I start my next Smurf.
All right, next one. Mytant. Mytant. Mytant?
Oh, it's got to be a
Mytant?
player.
I'm going to go
I'm gonna
IKEA.
go player.
2 players from IKEA. It is a player. It is the
Yes.
AD carry
Ding, ding,
from
ding, ding,
Crow
Get
Crowd.
after I'm.
Nice.
All
So
right.
Jared's on
We got
5, I'm on 4. Stella's on
Oh my
2.
god, are we keeping score?
I don't know.
Yes.
We can
I am.
I'm just here for a
post-VOD
fun
review.
time, guys. I'm not here to win.
There is no prize, I will reiterate.
Yes, there is. There's a prize of being the best.
Exactly.
But
I'm with
Jared is 1 point ahead of me, and Stella
I haven't
is
been counting.
out
We'll
of
have to do a
contention.
recount later on.
All right, well,
Yeah.
I have
we're
been.
down,
It's counting.
Jared 5, I'm on 4, Stella's on 2.
so we're down to our final one. So I guess if
Even
Jared
it
wants
up.
his victory, he just locks in the same as Ryan. Holmsund. Holmsund.
I'm gonna go IKEA.
Well, I'll go
Yeah,
play
IKEA.
for the
It
victory.
is a corner sofa bed for a house.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
well
It
done,
sounded-
Jared. You really
It
know your
sounded
IKEA
like
furniture.
it sounded like a Swedish sort of name with Sund at the end.
True.
Yeah,
True.
but
I
I mean, like,
Jared had hints of the wife buff in that game.
maybe Beyonce buff.
Beyonce buff.
Yeah, no, like some of the Lanel really sounds like IKEA, doesn't it?
There are a
No.
few. That was a good segment, Seagull. I
That was
really
great.
liked that.
That was really
Thanks,
good.
guys. Well, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing next week. So again, if anyone's got any suggestions, chuck it in the comments, and we'll see what we can do.
Fun little thing while we're on the IKEA train. I've heard that if it's like a toilet seat or something that they don't like, they actually use like a Danish word for it instead of a Swedish word.
Oh, really?
As a bit of a fuck you. We'll have to have one of our viewers confirm if that's true or not. If anyone's fluent in some of those Scandinavian languages, but yeah, that's what someone told me a few years ago, and I found it hilarious.
Yeah, nice. All right, so take it away into the deep dive.
It's time to
Deep dive.
So this week, I thought it would be a really good idea for us to all chat about the rise and fall of G2, given what's happened recently with G2 not making Worlds. It's left us all wondering what has happened. So for those who might not know, G2 is a powerhouse of European League of Legends. They're well loved around the world. They've cultivated a culture of work hard, play hard, and they've built a loyal following through their insane plays, their meme content, and their unpredictability. But since their world second ranking in 2019, G2 has seemed to have stalled a little bit, and we've witnessed a team that couldn't quite keep up with the finesse and the rigor of the Chinese and the Korean teams of 2020. So with the LEC season at an end, and the finals are unfolding before us with Worlds, we see a G2 that just couldn't even deliver in their own league. This is the first time in the history of G2 that they have not qualified for Worlds, and in fact, they were knocked out in the playoffs against Fnatic for that place. So what's happened? How has G2 built such a great following with huge success, all to see it just plummet so quickly? So today's deep dive, we're discussing the rise and fall of G2 Esports and where that leaves some of the biggest names in history.
I think we've got a lot to say on this, but it might be important to go back to the very beginning, Stella. So could you tell us a bit about, I guess, where it started and where it's at now?
Yeah, of course. So G2 Esports was initially established as Gamers 2 on the 24th of February 2014, and it was primarily a League of Legends organization. So it was founded by Carlos Ocelot Rodriguez, who was one of Europe's leading League of Legends players at the time. He left SK, where he'd been playing for 3 years, to start his own organisation. Gamers 2 wasn't initially a successful team. They failed to qualify for the top European League 3 times in a row until they hired Perk, a young Perks, I should say, a young
Two of them.
up-and-coming, just one singular Perk. A young up-and-coming esports player who took the position of mid, and with that, they qualified for the 2016 European LCS spring season. And in fact, they won that spot over Ocelot's old team, SK, which was a wonderful career win for Ocelot. Alongside this success, Gamers 2 acquired a Counter-Strike team, and Ocelot decided to make the decision to completely rebrand the organization to G2 Esports. As this new organization, they sort of formed themselves as a multi-esports organization built around world-class performance.
I mean, that's a little bit feels bad for Ocelot as well, because he finally beat his old team when he wasn't playing. So, I mean, it's a theoretical win, but it's
there's a really funny story that's similar in the Dota world with OG Gaming. And as soon as one of the founding people who wanted to kick out the other founder left, they actually then won the Dota International 2 years in a row. So,
oh, wow. I feel like that'd be like me paying Faker to play on my account to beat you, though, Jared. Anyway, please continue, Stella.
Well, I guess that makes a really good point that in esports organizations, sometimes, if you're trying to do too many roles at once, you actually don't do a good job at any of them. So as soon as you actually move out of being a founder player or a coach player or something like that, you're actually able to focus in on what you're good at. And it seems like Ocelot really did a good job at becoming the founder CEO, because I guess after this success in 2016, they qualified for MSI, and they were actually favourites to come second, strangely enough. That's a weird way to put it.
Second
but
favourites.
they were up against SK Telecom, T1, which were at the time just the best team in the world. So they looked like they were so good that they were going to get into the final against them, but obviously lose, because who could really come up against T1? But a little bit of controversy, a bit of a scandal. In the weeks leading up to the international competition, they took a vacation after what they termed to be a rigorous spring split. Apparently, someone in the roster afterwards reported that there'd been some internal conflict during this vacation, and G2 actually came through MSI losing 8 out of their 10 games. And
Jeez.
Let me tell you, the backlash from the community was rough. It wasn't just because the official G2 statement about this whole situation was a bit lame, but it was because their poor performance just generally had a wider impact on European League of Legends, because what happened is that it actually cost EU LCS League its first seed for the 2016 World Championships later that year.
Ouch.
So, yeah, their poor performance really had a wider impact.
Was it ever publicly released what the internal scandal was? That's pretty spicy.
I don't know. I think it was just differences of opinion or something like that. I'm not quite sure. I feel
just getting too rowdy.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, they just
Too many memes.
It was a rough split for them, guys. They just needed to let loose a little bit.
And Ocelot, if you've ever seen any of his stuff, like, I think that his content is bloody awesome. Like, I really like him, but he'd be a pretty cutthroat manager. Like, he's shows all of his emotions up front. So when he's happy,
he cut himself from the team, so nobody's safe. Like,
and you see interviews of him crying about his playing career. So it obviously means a lot to him, and he just hard on his sleeve sort of guy. And as a general manager, like, it's awesome to see him in the content. But if you were playing underneath him, you'd certainly know it if you were playing like shit.
A lot of heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, talking about players getting heat from the founder, in 2018, 2 of their roster actually departed. And what they decided to do is rebuild the team around perks. So it was during this restructure that they picked up Wonder and Yankos in their playing team and their coach Grabs. So these are some now very familiar names that we start popping up. So come 2019, G2 then decided to ditch their bot lane, and instead they picked up Mickey X as their support and moved perks to bot and signed their star mid laner Caps from their rivals Fnatic. And this is kind of where we get to the real peak of G2. Now that they have this star lead up, this really awesome sort of team dynamic, Ocelot's in this CEO position. Perks is in their bot lane with Mickey X supporting him. They feels like they can't lose. And I think this is sort of a really good opportunity for you guys to have a bit of a chat, I guess, about what G2 was like for you guys watching in 2019, because I know that was a big year for them and a big year for you guys watching League as well.
For sure. I reckon that was maybe the year that I watched, well, first really got sunk my teeth into League of Legends Esports, and I was following along that roster move really closely, where Perks moved to ADC, and at the time Perks was considered one of the best mid laners in the world. And I'm not sure if the information came out at the time or if it's just information I've sort of collected over the years, but I remember really important chat between Perks and Carlos, the G2 owner, about who he'd move away from mid lane for. And essentially he said it was Caps or Faker. And obviously Faker was pretty difficult to sign. I think that knowing Carlos, he probably tried. He probably even grabbed a plane over to Korea and maybe had a few solo queue 1v1s with Faker. And but in all seriousness, it was a huge move for Perks to move over, and they got the target man they wanted in Caps, and it obviously bloody paid off for them that year. It was incredible.
Well, Caps was probably the best mid laner in the world, and definitely in Western countries he was number one. With
definitely in the Western countries, number one by far.
Yeah. And
do you think that's still the case?
All his media as well with winning 1v1s, and he was just, the hype was all around Caps. So
yeah, and we saw it, man. Like, it was constantly the 2v2 in jungle that was just popping off every single game for G2. Caps was playing things like Pyke and Syndra and out roaming like Gallios, and he was really one of those first to play those super roam heavy styles where it was more about getting your team in front, but at the same time he would be playing these huge carries that would pick up kills left, right, and center.
I feel like Caps was almost an early adopter of the like LPL playstyle we see now, like hyper aggression, almost like you take those 51% plays instead of like the traditional Korean like 80% or higher, like really coin flip stuff. But when he gets going and just takes over a game.
Yeah, and it was incredible to watch. I used to it's been a bit sad watching them in the finals the last sort of 12 months, but they're such a fun team to watch, which is why I think that they rose so heavily and people just fell in love with them.
Yeah, and especially when you lock in stuff like Vayne mid and all the hype around that was pretty pogs. So yeah, people just love that, and then people love
pretty
the
good meme video.
Yeah, and you don't usually hear any more too much drama within the team of G2. It's usually just memes, and I mean Yankos is pretty famous for having a pretty big man crush on Mickey, and they do cooking shows, and I mean with content like that, even if you're not playing to the peak of your performance, people can kind of like forgive that a little bit because they're likable guys.
Well, that's it. Like, and I think that although is really, really poignant and important for a business sense and for getting content out there, it's probably arguably one of the reasons why G2 has seen a bit of a downfall is they just haven't had anything fresh happen to them in the last few years. They're one of the only rosters in the world that's probably seen the same core squad of 4 or 5 like stick together year after year and only changing one player out. So
before we talk, I guess, about the fall of G2, let's talk about their amazing run at Worlds. Jared, tell us about the amazing upsets that happened with G2 in 2019.
So I guess everyone knew that the European teams were pretty dope in 2019. We had especially the European Heimerdinger was a feared pick in the bot lane, and I remember it getting through. I can't remember which series, but I do remember it getting through like 1 or 2 games, and they just obliterated the other team with it, and it was just a constant ban for the rest of the series. So it was one of those things where it was like, oh, it's just this European team. Like, they're pretty good at a few things, but they're not going to go far. And then all of a sudden, they were up against Darm1 Gaming, who were, I think, Korea's maybe second seed that year. I can't remember exactly, but we had other teams like SKT and Griffin up there that year who were also incredible LCK squads. But G2, I think there was a funny story, and it's probably all rumors, but we got to take it as gospel, is apparently they lost every single scrim against Darm1. They didn't win a single game. So, and they played something like 15 or 20 scrims because they were scrim partners, thinking that they wouldn't play up against each other. And then all of a sudden it gets to the semi-finals, the quarterfinals, and G2 knocked Darm1 out and just smoked them. It was just like, it felt like it was not even close. Like, they were just an incredible team. And that was where everyone suddenly clicked and going, holy moly, this G2 team is something else. Like, they've just got that X factor. And you see Darm1 come back the year after in 2020, and they just were never going to lose, especially to G2. They just hated their guts so much, and it must have been that drive that just turned them into the best team we've probably ever seen in League of Legends.
Yeah, for sure. Every interview was just like, we just want to play G2 and like get our revenge. We just want to play G2, and like the interviewers like, oh, like what's your goals this year? Like, just to beat G2. We don't care about anything else.
We just want Perks' blood, basically. Like, that's exactly all they cared about. And of course, like, G2 are those classic jokers. Like, they love to rile up people on Twitter, and their content is always poking fun. They're never going to give respect to the opposition until after the game. They're a fun team to follow, and definitely it makes it exciting if Darm1 Gaming, of all teams, wants to just, hate their guts and want to beat them with all costs.
So what about the final then?
Well, the final, unfortunately for Western teams, has gone like a lot of other finals, and it was against FPX, and it was when Doinby really was creating this roam meta, and he was playing champs like Malphite. They tried to counter it with the Pyke so that Pyke would out-roam Malphite, but it was at a time when Pyke was no longer really a mid laner, so Caps fell behind in CS, and then Doinby, the player is, still out-roamed Caps, and it just was a big fat mid-diff, and like the star player of G2, Caps, just couldn't quite hack it against this this relatively unknown player from the LPL called Doinby. And like, obviously he's not an unknown player, but he wasn't in the likes of Chovy or Faker or Showmaker or anything like that. He was
at the time.
At the time, and now everyone's gone, holy moly, this like Roman Go style is super cool. Like, let's all follow Doinby. But yeah, that's what happened to them in the final, and it all seems sort of maybe not downhill from there, but that was definitely the peak of G2, is a second place at runner-up at the World Championships of 2019.
Yeah, and they did win MSI that year as well. So
yeah.
So MSI, they did get a few titles as well.
Didn't they verse did they verse an NA team in the final of MSI that year? Wasn't that like a crazy...
Yeah, Team Liquid, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was like a Western team versus a Western team. Never thought I'd see that.
Almost unheard of.
Although winning MSI is like a big deal, it's huge. It's just like, no one really cares. Like, it's a trophy to add to your cabinet, but if anyone asks you like, who won MSI in 2015, you'd be like, I don't know. Doesn't matter. Like, they didn't win Worlds.
It's true. It's true.
It's just practice for Worlds.
I mean,
really.
RNG like scraped through and almost didn't make it to Worlds, and they won MSI. Like, there's not even like, you know, in other sports, like you think about the Champions League in soccer, someone wins the Champions League and they get a free entry next year. There's not even a free entry to Worlds if you win MSI. Like, that's how much it just doesn't even mean anything.
Yeah.
I guess it's because the game of League of Legends changes so much. You have so many roster changes between seasons, and you have, or between years, and the meta changes so much as well, and so that benefits different playing styles and different teams really differently every year. And I guess speaking of roster changes, after losing Worlds, G2 went through a range of roster changes. The first one being a role switch, which seemed pretty spicy at the time.
Yeah, so they chucked Perks back into the mid lane and Caps down to the bot lane for split one. And obviously, like, that was that when they won the LEC still, I'm pretty sure. And then they basically were just like, nah, Caps hates ADC. Where he's going back mid.
It's crazy how they can still win even after just changing the positions of their team. Like,
yeah,
you don't see that in traditional sports.
At that time,
No.
it was really only G2 and Fnatic that had kind of the quality of like the first class teams. Things have changed a fair bit these last two splits.
Yeah, so I guess like that's probably a pretty good segue into maybe like the downfall of G2 and what we actually think it's been. I guess the major sort of stats are showing that they didn't make MSI this year, and they also have now not made Worlds for the first time since being rebranded as G2. So statistically showing like they're past their peak. Like, definitely. There's no denying that. Like, not making Worlds is a huge deal for G2. But I guess, like, why is that? Like, maybe you've alluded on a little bit there that it's because other teams are stepping it up. But also, my opinion would be that, like, the roster is starting to get a little bit old and probably needs a bit of a shake-up. But, yeah, I guess on to you guys. What do you think? Let's have a bit of a chat about it.
Well, I guess they did already try to give a bit of a roster shake-up. I mean, they ditched Perks. Like, the guy that had been with them since the very start almost, you know, that was the team that they built G2 around. And they decided that he wasn't what they needed at the time, and they got rid of him to replace him with Reckless from Fnatic. And I guess that didn't really do much for them. You know, they didn't see a huge change in their performance. It was definitely new. It was definitely different. But yeah, it didn't really relate back to their performance at all. So, you know, like, was it really about the how stale the team was? I mean, when it comes to League of Legends teams, is changing one player enough to kind of shake things up? Do you need to change more in your roster? Does it need to be
Maybe they
a
should have
complete
put
overhaul?
Reckless in the mid lane. Seems to work.
Possibly.
Usually.
Maybe.
Like,
Except I could only see Reckless playing like a Veigar or a Corki or an Azir and just sitting back under his tower farming, because I think that's been half of the issue of G2 in my opinion.
Well, role swaps have been the flavour of the year this year for LEC, but I feel like I can speak with a little bit of authority with LEC being my region, spending a lot of hours watching, and
very keen to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah, they G2, and especially G2 being my favourite team, following them for a while. I think people are a bit harsh on them, and I think they being this team that has so many fans, that has been so successful, you can't escape that criticism when you don't perform. But generally, people, I think, have been pretty harsh in the media because of all the money that's going around, because of the Perks trade, because of getting Reckless. You know, the expectation was getting the best ADC into the best team would make them an even better team. And to be honest, I think it didn't make them worse. Did it make them better? It's hard to say, and it's hard to say because of the quality of the other teams have just improved so much. Fnatic was really struggling, and then they got the best top laner from EU Masters, which arguably is a great competition itself. And then one of the best top laners moved into a jungle role where he could have more an impact. So, and you've got Mad Lions who had all these youngsters that have had a year of competition to improve and to work together, and Rogue, and you just had all these just significant improvements. And G2 have also tried to keep up, but Caps was the best player in 2019, and now it's 2021, and people have just gotten better. And to say that G2 has fallen to the depths, not making worlds, well, really, if you look at it, probably G2 is the third best team in LEC. They just got a bit unlucky with how qualifications go, and I mean, is it getting unlucky, or have they just not made it? It's hard to say, but because they were in the spotlight and now they haven't quite made it, they're going to get all the criticism. Is it worth it? Well, I guess individually you have to be the judge of that, and I don't think that just firing everyone and sending everyone to NA is the answer. But I think they do need to change something up if they want to get back to their top 2 teams in the world performance.
You know what I was just thinking, which would make the best content ever for G2 would be, now that the Vietnamese team can't make it to Iceland, is they need to find another team. And who would they go to? The LEC. Who would they go to there? The 4th place team. Who's that? G2. G2 come back after a vacation thinking that they weren't going to do, but this time it was a positive vacation.
No internal conflict.
No internal conflict. Ocelot maybe has to jump in for ADC because Reckless is sick. And then they win Worlds and they get to make a big fat after movie, and the G2 content team is just absolutely creaming their pants.
I don't think that you would be the only person thinking that. I think there'll be a lot of people really hoping that G2 somehow get to Worlds. And if
it could happen, Worlds, it really could happen.
Yeah. And if they got to Worlds, they would definitely get out of groups like that.
You would be expecting
a good team. Yeah. They're a good team.
Imagine what would be the scenes.
Exactly.
All right. Well, speaking of what ifs and predictions, we'll move on to our next week's bet segment, and because we haven't actually got any bets that are possible to be made this week, I guess it's going to be a bit of a quiet one. But we've got our wife buff futures prediction for Fnatic. We're probably going to be chucking a very small amount on that one because it's not a very likely scenario, but the omens are there.
Content.
And Seagull's pretty keen on it, so we're jumping on that one.
It's going to pay my mortgage.
We're probably looking at the big favourites that have won were in the major Korean and European and LPL Grand Finals. And I think the picks are pretty unanimous around our community, and I think our team, we're thinking the top 4 is very strongly in the sort of FPX, Darm 1 Gaming, EDG, and then Mad Lions or RNG are probably sneaking in there for that 4th place.
That probably just depends on how the seeding works and how the qualification gets. I know that it's hard for 3 teams of the same region to get in because they'll eventually have to play each other to qualify. But there's kind of your top 5.
They're all very
teams.
solid sides though, so if you're up against them, bit of bad luck. But it has been a bit of a long podcast, this one, and we do want to wrap it up. So thanks for joining in and listening, and don't forget to subscribe and comment below to let us know what you think. We're pretty excited to bring you this content each week, and we've got a few more leading up to Worlds, so we'd love to hear from you if you have any topics of interest. And if you do have any questions, message us through Instagram, Facebook, or our Discord server. Drop a comment below.
Yeah, and just like always, come join us on the Discord. We'll be chatting about everything that's coming up for Worlds there. That's Esport News _tips. And you can ask us any questions there. We're pretty active every day there.
And if you do want more tips, there's not going to be any this month, unfortunately. But if you do want to just support us or simply donate to continue what we're doing, you can subscribe via our Patreon from just $5 a week. And then when we do have games, you'll get up to, you'll get all of the tips for the $20 Patreon, but just a pick of the week for $5. And before we go, we want to acknowledge that this podcast is recorded on the lands of the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians of the lands on which we live, learn, and game. These lands were stolen and never ceded. The podcast was written by all of us, produced by our mate Sick Dog, and thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah.
And it's edited every week by Seagull, so thanks for the hard work you're all doing here. We appreciate it a lot. And from all of us here at League of Bets, GG Easy.